On
Thanks
this week's
for listening
episode,
to the Pop Culture Cosmos
Michael Myers
and
returns
the PCC
to the
Multiverse.
big screen.
Check out more great
The
podcasts
host
today
for Star
on one of these
Citizen
awesome affiliate
and the
networks.
legacy of Akira.
You're listening to
on
a
its
Weeby
35th
Geeks Network
anniversary.
podcast.
All this and more as we reach our next stop.
You're listening to the
the
ESO
PCC
Network,
Multiverse.
your station for all things geek.
Don't be alarmed. The quasi-shimmering light before you is a trans-dimensional gateway to other worlds, other voices, other thoughts, and other realities. Up
A proud
feels
member
like
of the
down,
Gonna Geek Network.
and down feels
The
like the
opinions
number
expressed
7
are those
on
of
a
each
Wednesday
individual.
morning.
Check out all the other
Don't
geeky
worry.
podcasts
That
over at
quivering, blood-boiling
GonnaGeekNetwork.com
sensation under
and
your
get ready
eyebrows
because
is all
geekiness
a part of the
begins
charm.
in 3.
Welcome
2,
to the PCC
1.
Multiverse.
And we're back with another episode of the PCC Multiverse. This is Gerald Glasser from Pop Culture Cosmos and Game Source. We truly appreciate everyone out there being a part of all of our programming. But it wouldn't be a PCC Multiverse without, well, the man who wants to be like Akira himself. It is the man behind Humanica Media. You got to check out everything that's going on today at humanicamedia.com. Humanica Media on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and so much more. It is my good friend. It is Josh Peterson. What's up, man?
Yo, I think it's Kaneda that I would like to be with, not be with, be like, because Akira's a god. They never actually like solved that in the movie, huh? We'll get to this, but yeah, Akira's pretty awesome. Anyways, what's up, dude?
I'll take that bike. I'll just take that bike. But it is going to be a great weekend in pop culture, and we just want to talk about everything we can in the next hour. Not only are we going to talk about the big screen return for Michael Myers, talking about the big crowd-funded game called Star Citizen. Want to get everybody up to speed on that one. And we will be talking, yes, later in the show on Akira on its 35th anniversary. I also want to let everybody know that we've got scheduled for today as well. We've got Kevin Eldridge from the Flopcast and Mike Faber from the ESO Network. They're stopping by once again to talk about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Those acts that didn't even get blessed with a nomination that should be in already. We're going to share our thoughts on that. Also as well, Tyler Baker from the Fantasy Football Paydirt Podcast. He's stopping by to talk about Week 7 in the NFL. But first, my friend, it is a great weekend as Halloween, the reboot, the revisited, is coming back on the big screen. It's coming to theaters all across everywhere. This Michael Myers is back. He's got his big knife out to go ahead and do some damage once again. But back as well after many years to the series is Jamie Lee Curtis. This is going to be not necessarily a reboot per se, but it's ignoring any of the previous iterations of Halloween that came after the original 1970s movies. Your thoughts on this latest Halloween reboot type deal and the fact that Jamie Lee Curtis is returning the role, and plus there's a lot of favorable reviews out there for this film way ahead of schedule. That was very surprising. It came out for reviews this early. Your thoughts on Halloween as it hits theaters a couple weeks before Halloween.
So is it a reboot or I thought it's a sequel, but it's a rebooted sequel.
It's a rebooted sequel. They're ignoring anything from Halloween 2 on, and they're basically obliterating that and just focusing on 35 years after the events of what happened in the original 1970s Halloween movie.
Oh, that's kind of cool. I like the idea that these older franchises can now retcon the entries in between, because wasn't what's his name, Neil Blomkamp, was going to do that with Aliens, right?
Yes, and we are going to see the same thing as well with the next Terminator movie, which is going to take out, like you said, retcon a lot of those Terminator movies that were really bad or just barely made money or anything of that nature, and just basically retcon a lot of them and just start off and just remember the events of Terminator 2, and then anything else that came after it, it's been wiped off the face of the earth. Same thing here with Halloween. It's being wiped out as far as anything after the original Halloween movie.
That's kind of cool. I like that. That it would actually be interesting to see them do that with the Friday the 13th series. I would actually kind of enjoy that, because I remember that franchise got kind of ridiculous, especially with Jason going into space and stuff.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that.
Oh, you know what's weird though? Like, I don't hate that movie nearly as much as I should. It's so bad that it's become so memorable, and I actually consider it like a cult classic cheesy horror movie.
Well, you and I later this month are actually going to pick our top 5 horror movies. Plus, we're going to get on our resident horror expert, Jason Todd Feinberg from Honey Queen as well, to go ahead and share his thoughts on the subject. But that is for another day.
All right.
Right now, there is this Halloween movie. Your thoughts on what I talked about actually a few weeks ago in the fact that Halloween was screened before critics not just a couple days, not just a couple weeks, but over a month before its release date, and it's come out to really strong reviews, which is highly unusual for the horror genre. What are your thoughts on that? Was this a good move? Was this something that you would have done or you would have planned if the movie was already finished that well ahead of time? Do you think that was a smart move by the film company to go ahead and preview and start to get that good word of mouth out for Halloween?
Yeah, for sure. Because this franchise has been dead for how many years? I want to say at least 10.
Yeah, about that.
No, it's a good idea because honestly, like, you make something like this and you don't know how well it's going to do, especially in today's climate. With people don't really like slasher flicks that much anymore. There hasn't been one in a long time, and when they do come out, they don't make that much money. But it's kind of smart because Halloween's one of those franchises where it is a female protagonist, and that's kind of what hits big with audiences these days. And a lot of people, I think, they know the legacy of Halloween, but they haven't like gone to actually sit down to watch them. So I think that this is going to create a lot of interest, not just in this one, but in maybe the old ones too, which is cool because, it just shows that there is life in old franchise. Like we said a minute ago with Friday the 13th, maybe they can do that. I don't know. They've been talking for years about a new Nightmare on Elm Street, but I don't think that's ever going to happen. But yeah,
don't ever say that, because when you say it won't happen,
it ends up happening. No, it's just I'm glad, and they also have the added benefit too of like being the only or one of the only horror films out in theaters this Halloween. So good for them.
Well, when we broke it down, I think there was 4 or 5 horror films that were only scheduled to do out from September on. And while you and Jason Todd Feinberg from Honey Queen both hit it on the head with The Nun on how successful it would be, I was laying a lot of money on Halloween finding success for at least the next 2 weeks, if not a little bit more, because I think Halloween is going to be something that stays around for a little while because of the name and also because of the outstanding reviews it's been getting. It's really done a great job with critics, and also looks to be something that's getting a lot of good buzz in social media early on.
I wouldn't have just put it out there cold, and I'm just now seeing the trailers for it, but it's good that they went out and they tested it first just to see like how audiences would react, because it gave it not just, allowed them to see the reaction, but it gave them time to fix anything that they could fix, without having to go into major reshoots. So I think that's a smart business model, especially for if you're reviving a franchise and not putting something out that already has a good reputation, such as like a Marvel flick or a Disney movie or something like that. Like this is a franchise that hasn't been seen in 10 years. So it's smart that they did some market research on it before officially releasing it and not being able to, change anything.
This reminds me a lot of last year, what happened with It. It came out and did wonders at the box office. It has an amazingly high Rotten Tomatoes score. It did extremely well with critics and fans alike. Could we be seeing the same thing here with Halloween? Because at 84% on Rotten Tomatoes, that is a very, very good score, and especially for a horror genre flick, because it's not one that just relies on jump scares and more, like you said, on the old slasher days from back in the day.
Yeah, it is kind of crazy. And it's again, like, it has the benefit of having a female protagonist, and she's actually pretty badass. You saw the shotgun in the trailer, and she's like been preparing for this moment. So she's like the Sarah Connor of horror films. So that's That's cool. That's really cool. And it's a total throwback, and it's something that, if you would have gone back to the first Halloween and watched it and thought this franchise will definitely be around, 20 years from now, no one would have ever said that. So the fact that there's that, and that it's actually scoring well, it's good, man. Good. Like I said, hopefully this will help breathe life into some of the older other franchises too. Maybe this will put some momentum behind another Alien flick featuring Sigourney Weaver. That would be the dream. So more power to it, man. I don't know if I'm going to catch it in theaters, but I'll definitely throw some money behind it at some point.
My last question to you is, you said you will throw some money into it at some point. Do you think it will garner anywhere near the type of acclaim financially that we saw from it last year? Because it is not a movie reliant on jump scares. It is more focused on telling a narrative that remembers from years ago, and also focuses on other things besides, like I said, jump scares and whatnot. The old slashing type deal and things that we remember, without hopefully following into those same tropes that we saw over and over again that almost ruined the horror genre.
That's an interesting question, because I don't know how I would compare them, because they're kind of two different. They're both horror films, but they're two different stories. Like it is more of a packs a more emotional punch, I guess, and it's meant to. Sorry, it's kind of a emotional and sensory type experience, whereas Halloween is just kind of your straightforward slasher flicks. So I think that they both do different things, and it was one of those movies where like people are terrified of clowns. So I think it was one of those movies where people were actually kind of dragging their friends or daring their friends to go see it, whereas Halloween doesn't have that yet. Maybe it will, maybe maybe once it comes out and word about it gets around. But I think it was one of those movies that, like, it was one of those people wanted to go see it. There were teenagers trying to sneak into the theater to see it just because of what it was, and it has such a huge following, especially among Stephen King fans and people who, they did a great job of marketing that movie too. Their trailers, posters everywhere. As for Halloween, like I haven't seen that same type of saturation, so I don't know for sure. I don't see it making a whole lot of money, but I see it making enough to maybe hopefully keep the fad going.
And hopefully it will revive the franchise. It's now targeting right around a $60 million opening weekend here domestically, and probably, looking at maybe like 120, 150 million worldwide in its first few days of release. If it gets anywhere near the $300 to $400 million mark, or even more, it should be considered a big win for Universal, because it just accentuates the fact that there is an interest in this type of revisiting or reimagining old horror properties such as It and now Halloween. One last thing I want to ask you, my friend, someone that you've appreciated over the course of time, Danny McBride was involved heavily with the writing along with David Gordon Green, who I believe is directing the flick. Your thoughts on adding that element in there and providing a lot of possible comedy that could actually make it even better for people to watch in between the actual slicing and dicing?
See, I think that's really cool, because Danny McBride is someone who kind of grew up watching these films, and he's a big fan, kind of like how Seth Rogen grew up, watching Green Hornet or reading Green Hornet or whatever. That's.
But that didn't work out so well.
No, it didn't. But it still gives it a sense of relevance. It's able. I think Danny McBride is a good. He plays a lot of stupid characters, but I think he's a good person to bring an old franchise into to modern audiences as far as the writing goes, because like I said, the times are different. You can't just write a movie about a guy with a knife and a mask going around and killing teenage girls. You can't do that anymore. You can, but it's not going to do so well. You need something that captivates audiences, and whether that's from comedy or just having a well-written script, you have to have somebody who knows what they're doing, because you get someone who is a veteran in Hollywood screenwriting, and they're going to stick to the same tropes, whereas Danny McBride is a good person to come in and mix it up, and hopefully it works out. We'll have to see.
We will indeed, but Halloween hits screens for audiences this weekend. Are you looking forward to it? Is everyone out there really want to go ahead and revisit the saga of Michael Myers so many years later, and also revisit Jamie Lee Curtis's character as well, so many years after the traumatic events of that famous and iconic movie that really just at that time took the horror genre to a whole new level? Please, if you're interested in seeing it, please let us know. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Also as well, Pop Culture Cosmos, Humanity Media, and Game Source on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram also. You can also let us know if you're not interested, if you think this is something that's just a cash grab. We want to hear your thoughts both one way or the other. Either way is just cool by us. We just want to hear your thoughts at Pop Culture Cosmos. Coming up next, we've got Mike Faber from the ESL Network and Kevin Eldridge from the Flopcast. They're going to share their thoughts on acts that are constantly ignored each and every year that should already be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. We're going to share all of our thoughts on it coming up right after the break. After that, we've got Tyler Baker from the Fantasy Football Paydirt Podcast previewing Week 7 in the NFL. And, of course, we're coming back on the back end, Josh and I, to talk about Star Citizen. What is this project all about and why it could be really great for gamers? And, of course, a little bit on Akira on its 35th anniversary as well. This is the PCC Multiverse. Looking for an edge the next time you take on your favorite video game? Then check out Vitabrace High Performance Gamer Wristbands. Packed with the power of fruit seed oil, Vitabrace is clinically proven to help improve performance, giving you a better gaming experience. Head to miraclefruitoil.com and use the promo code MEDIA10 to get $10 off your Vitabrace purchase. Whether you're looking to beat the time on your latest speedrun or are fighting your way to the top on your favorite multiplayer or battle royale, Vitabrace can help you reach your gaming goals. Buy Vitabrace today at miraclefruitoil.com. That's miraclefruitoil.com. Vitabrace. Win with it. And we're back at the show. This is Gerald Glassford once again from the Pop Culture Cosmos and Game Source. Thanking you so much for being part of today's program. Well, it is that time of the year, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which I think should change its name to the Music Hall of Fame because they no longer really always represent rock and roll, but that's for another day. They did announce their nominees for the upcoming 2019 class for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And we've actually got included someone else this time besides myself and, of course, my usual guest for this. It is Kevin Eldridge from the Flopcast and also Mike Faber from the ESO Network. Guys, it's great to have you on the show. Each year, this is our crying session, everyone. So if there are some men crying up in the next few minutes, I do want to sincerely apologize in advance because this is now the portion of the interview where we talk about what bands that were not nominated we think should go in. And I asked the guys already to choose maybe 1, 2, or 3, whoever they feel should be included in the Hall of Fame. Kevin, I'm going to hold off on you for a sec because I know where you're going with it.
Okay.
Mike, I want to hear your thoughts on exactly who do you think continually gets ignored that you feel should go into the Hall of Fame?
Well, Kevin had actually mentioned earlier 2 of the people I think have grossly been, ignored by the Hall of Fame, and they're both from the early 80s. And, I'm thinking the Go-Go's, who was the first real power girl band of the 80s. They had number one hit after number one hit after number one hit. And, it's just a true shame that they haven't been recognized for that. And, I just always thought the Go-Go's were always a lot better than people gave them even credit for. So I definitely think the Go-Go's should be in there. But I also think you guys had also mentioned Pat Benatar. She's the first woman of, new wave music. And she is like Donna Summers was the queen of disco. Pat Benatar was the queen of MTV and new wave, of that era.
Now, I want to ask you real quick, Mike, on the Go-Go's. If you induct the Go-Go's, would you induct the Bangles as well?
No, not at all. I think the Go-Go's were a much more influenced band than the Bangles ever were. And the Bangles had a lot less hits than they did. They had Manic Monday. They had, all the other songs that they did. And, but you don't hear them all the time on the radio like you still hear the Go-Go's and, and such. So
I think the Bangles, if you just add up if we're going by hits, which is not the only fair way to judge who gets
not
in,
at all. But you also look at
I would say, yeah, I would say the Bangles probably have more hits than the Go-Go's. I mean, how many hits did the Go-Go's actually have? 4 or 5. But the Go-Go's were first. They were very important in here's this group of young women doing this. They're their own rock band. They were so super important to what came afterwards. The Go-Go's, I'd be fine with the Bangles getting in eventually, but the Go-Go's should be in right now.
Okay, but my one pick of somebody who actually should be in the Hall of Fame and is not, and you guys probably are going to lead into this anyway, I'm going to say Mike Nesmith solo should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Wow.
You're trying to start something, Mike, there.
No. My reasoning is he was pretty much the father of the music video and such, and you don't realize that, and a lot of people don't remember that he, because of the videos he was putting out, and his revolutionary with the medium, he, they decided to make him a TV channel based off of that, and he was very influential on creating MTV. And I definitely think for that alone, not even saying the work he did with the Monkees or his solo work, as a musician, should qualify for being in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, that would not be as a performer, even that would be in one of those other categories they have for
exactly.
Yeah.
Like lifetime achievement award or something like that.
They've inducted there are DJs and producers and people who are not the actual performers who are inducted in separate categories.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I would say is if you ever spoke to him, I think he would get more pleasure about talking about his directorial career than his Monkees career, or even to an extent his music career as well.
Well, exactly. Or just talk to him about his mom inventing whiteout.
Yeah, I remember that as well. So that's some great choices, and that's some great thoughts from you, Mike. Kevin, here we go. Get the Kleenex out, everyone. Here it comes. Some adult men crying here. Go ahead, Kevin, on your thoughts on some artists.
Yeah,
artists that you think continually gets ignored that should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
I think before we get to my personal favorites that are so criminally overlooked, I think a big blind spot that we still have to point out again that the Hall of Fame continues to have is metal. There are so few metal bands have, outside of Black Sabbath, the original, and then Metallica, and not a lot more that really fits the metal category beyond a couple of bands have been inducted. And when you consider that Judas Priest and Iron Maiden and these major important bands that are never even considered to be inducted, I think that's really ridiculous that those bands are still waiting. So we want to throw out that mention, at least, that we need more metal in the Hall of Fame. Beyond that, I hope I'm not falling into rerun mode too much from our previous conversations, but there are acts that get dismissed as novelty acts. And we mentioned that Devo, I fear, used to fall into that category. So it's nice to see them finally actually nominated. But I know that most, if not all of us on the call right now are huge Weird Al Yankovic fans. And, Weird Al's been doing this for 40 years at this point. And you can dismiss him as a novelty act because he is a novelty act by design. But so great at what he does, and so important and really a remarkable body of work that I think that if the Hall of Fame didn't take itself so seriously, I think they should let in Weird Al.
I agree with you on that. In fact, he does own and possess a number one album. His previous album, I believe, did hit number one on the Billboard charts. And there is no excuse at this point. He's had the body of work now with several hits, several top 10, several top 100, several top 100 hits that are out there that he's had over the course of time. And he's revolutionized a genre that we didn't even know existed before he came on, that he's really done by himself, that he's really created for himself, that no one else has been able to successfully duplicate, and may not even after he's gone from the music scene.
And then if people think, oh, he just does parodies, how can you get in if you do parodies? Well, Weird Al this year went on tour and said, hey, we're just going to do a stripped down acoustic show, no props, no videos, and we're not going to do parodies. I'm just going to go out and play my original songs. He did a whole tour like that this year and filled up theaters across the country doing it. So Weird Al is not just a parody guy either.
And there's that is actually just a great assessment. I think he does belong in the Hall of Fame. And I think he's quite forgotten about because of the fact that he thinks that people think, right, like you say, he just does parodies, and nobody realizes the tremendous amount and tremendous array of original songs he has. Okay, my friend. All right.
Are we doing this?
All right, we're doing it. All right. Okay.
Well, we're on the subject already, thanks to the mention of Mike Nesmith, of course. But yeah, it's a tradition now. We have to point out the grossest oversight in the history of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is always has been and continues to be, and by design, because the guy in charge of the Hall of Fame, apparently it's his lifelong vow is that they shall never be in the Hall of Fame. And of course, we think the Monkees should be in.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Once again.
Come on, boys. It's, a little bit me. It's a little bit you.
I guess I must be a daydream believer. What are you going to do?
But it continues to just be a black eye on the reputation of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And again, I like the Hall of Fame. I visited the Hall of Fame this year, had a great day there, and we have a great time watching the concert every year and discussing who gets in. It's great. But, rock is supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be goofy. Lighten up. Let the Monkees in.
I'm telling you what, nobody's going to be your stepping stone. That's for sure.
You got that right.
I cannot agree with you more. All right. Well, that's some great thoughts. Tell you what, guys, it's been great having you on the show. But before we head on out, I want to hear why your shows on both the ESO Network for you, Mike, and the Flopcast for you, Kevin, are so awesome. Mike, I'm going to have you go off first on why the ESO Network is the place to go for everything geek.
You could be a geek about anything, and you could be a geek about art. You could be a geek about fantasy. You could be a geek about sports, nature, the weather, music. How about that? Music you could be a geek about. So, Earth Station 1 it's time to let your inner geek out to play. And, that's what the ESO Network represents. It's a family of shows that represent everything that's geek. And you can find us, of course, at esonetwork.com.
Yeah, the Flopcast is my little corner of the ESO network. And yeah, our show tends to be probably the silliest, goofiest show on the network, I hope. That's what we're striving for.
And you strive for it well. You aim high.
We do tend to talk about chickens a lot for no particular reason. But beyond that, it's a lot of pop culture based, especially stuff from the 70s and 80s, 70s, 80s nostalgia talk. A lot of music talk. I think we talk more about music than probably most of the other shows on the network. We go out to concerts all the time and report about them on the show. I'm only half of the Flopcast because I have a wonderful co-host who people tend to like way more than me. That's Cornflake, and she's the best. So you get to hear Cornflake when you tune in as well. It's not just me whining about the Monkees every week. And you can find us at flopcast.net.
Guys, it's so great to have you on the show, part of the program, and of course, right here, a part of the pop culture cosmos.
ESO, 7 years of keeping it really geeky.
The Earth Station 1 podcast. It's time to let your inner geek out to play. You can find them at www.earthstation1.com or up on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, or wherever fine podcasts are found. Peace, and we're done.
And we're back with the show. And once again, it's Gerald Glassford coming right back at you here. It's week 7 upon us here in the NFL, almost halfway through, and it's really exciting. It's been a great season so far. Got a lot of things to talk about when it comes to week 7 in the NFL. And I couldn't do it without my good friend. He is the guru of the Fantasy Football Paydirt Podcast. You got to check it out today on everywhere you can on the Pop Culture Cosmos channel that's available now on Podbean, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and over 30 different podcast outlets. It is my good friend. It is the man who's ready for this weekend to beat another opponent senseless in fantasy football. It is Tyler Baker. What's going on, man?
Hey, dude. Happy to be on the show, man. I love the pop culture cosmos. It's always good to be on.
I think it's just my charm and ingratiating wit that just
absolutely.
That just keeps bringing you back. Just keep bringing it back.
Absolutely.
You know, when we ever get around to it, man, we got to record one of those happy, upbeat promos that we got to just get that will just drive millions and millions upon to our channel. Just, one of those happy. Make sure you come out and listen to our show at the Fantasy Football Paydirt Podcast. Anyway, you got to have that happy, upbeat voice when you do it, too.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, now that I'm living on the East Coast, we're always recording around midnight. So it's like at the end of the day and I'm dragging, and I'm sure it sounds like I have zero enthusiasm, but I am actually happy to be on the show.
All right. Sounds good. Sounds good, my friend. But yes, one of these days we'll get you early. We'll get you right as you drink like a big old mug of coffee, just slurp it all down and get you all wired in there, and you'll be able to cut that promo there, and get, like I said, millions will come in when we start playing it on a Pop Culture Cosmos.
I love it.
But it is going to be a great weekend in the NFL. First off, before I torture you at the end with some really good stuff that I like to talk about, which is, always kind of amusing here and there. What are some of the things that are going on this weekend that you're focusing on in week 7 in the NFL? And it all starts with Le'Veon Bell being a no-show, and we don't even know when he's coming to Pittsburgh, if it's anytime soon.
Yeah, a report came out about a month ago that he was supposed to come in on the bye week and then show up for week 8. Pittsburgh is on a bye this week. It hasn't happened yet. That doesn't mean that he can't show up next week and start playing. I would expect it will be week 10. He has to show up by week 10. Otherwise, this whole year doesn't count for him. So I would expect he shows up, and I would expect he's going to be in pretty good shape. He's a veteran. He knows how to train. I just don't know what it's going to look like. And I don't know. You know what? I would really like to be in the locker room or in the team meetings when he actually shows up. I would like to. I'm kind of curious as to how he's going to be welcomed back, but he's an elite talent, and I'm sure he will be welcomed back. And, maybe sometime soon we'll see Le'Veon Bell on a football field. It sure would be nice.
Yes, it sure would be, because he's got such immense talent. I know on our previous show that you got to check out on the Pop Culture Cosmos channel, you and I discussed in detail about him, whether it's him or the Pittsburgh offense that really has created his whole stature and where he's at right now. Because I know we talked about the success of James Conner. It looks like they're already, all set to go ahead and move on from Le'Veon Bell, because with James Conner doing so well, it makes it much easier to go ahead and have him go and just find somewhere else in free agency.
It does. This offense is just good. Ben Roethlisberger has been one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL this year, and they have some of the best receivers in the NFL. James Conner looks this year a lot better than he did last year. When he did play last year, he did not look good. Looks like he's got his power and his speed back. He is definitely a different running style, and there have been several runs that I've seen this year where if Le'Veon Bell would have gotten the ball in that situation, he would have gotten more out of it. But Connor has done enough to be a very effective running back, and for what they would have to pay Le'Veon Bell as opposed to what they're paying Connor, it's night and day. And with Big Ben making all the money and Antonio Brown making all the money, they just can't afford late Le'Veon Bell. So I would assume that they're going to get him back and get as much out of him as they can. And I'm sure Le'Veon Bell really wants to get on the football field and show what he can do, because every other GM in the league is going to be looking and seeing what he does on the field and trying to balance that with what he could, the drama that he could possibly bring and the price that they're going to have to pay for him.
But that gets me to one question. Let's say you're responsible for running the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he comes there. Do you go ahead and you play him and work him hard, like it's just as far as putting him out there for being an integral part of the Pittsburgh offense, knowing that it's basically an audition for him moving somewhere else?
The Pittsburgh Steelers are concerned with winning football games. And I believe that's going to be their focus. And in any way that Le'Veon Bell can help, that's what they're going to do. They want to win football games. Showing him off for the rest of the league, we already know who Le'Veon Bell is. I think it's going to be somewhat of a mix, at least for him coming back, kind of easing him in. Having some packages where James Conner is the running back, and of course having some packages for Lev Bell. But I think it's going to be a mix. And like we talked about last time we got together, I think it's going to take a couple of weeks for us to really see what that balance is going to look like between Bell and Conner.
Once again, it is Tyler Baker from the Fantasy Football Paydirt Podcast. Episodes are available right now on the Pop Culture Cosmos channel, on Podbean, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and over 30 different podcast outlets. My friend, Week 7 looks pretty good in the NFL. We've got a lot of nice matchups that are out there. Anything that you are seeing that fantasy football owners need to focus on in order to go ahead and make sure that they are well ahead of the game? And because right now it is now transitioning into the middle part and closing in on the latter part of the fantasy football season very quickly. We talked about last week on our previous episode of the PCC Multiverse possible trade targets that people need to be interested in. What other things that people need to be focusing on? Injuries that might have happened over the weekend, or maybe some positional changes that you need to look at in order to gain an advantage right now in the fantasy football world?
Well, the big news this week is that Devonta Freeman has gone on injured reserve. So he's done for the year. He could come back, but by the time he comes back, fantasy football will be done with. And honestly, the way it's looking, the Falcons' season is pretty much done. I mean, they're 1-4, 1-5, and they just don't look good. Unfortunately, too many injuries to that defense really just took the backbone out of that defense. And losing Devonta Freeman is going to hurt the team, but the rookie Ito Smith has done really well with the touches that he's gotten. They've shown that they like to use him in the passing game, and Tevin Coleman hasn't necessarily impressed. So for fantasy purposes, Ito Smith is certainly worth a pickup in your league. I have a couple leagues where I've got Buck Allen kind of at the bottom of my roster, kind of that I like to have one roster spot where I just kind of switch guys out, kind of see, kind of speculative ads. And I found myself dropping a lot of Buck Allen and picking up Ito Smith because that defense is pretty bad, and Matt Ryan is going to throw the ball, and they're going to have to do things on offense to stay in games. And I think Ito Smith might be a really good pickup. Also, in fantasy football, there's quite a few fantasy football managers that are trying to deal with the bye weeks, so they're going to be dropping players. So keep an eye on who the other managers in your league are dropping, and see if maybe there's some pickups there. I do like we talked about last week, maybe some quarterbacks moving forward that could increase in value. I think Russell Wilson is one of those quarterbacks for a couple of reasons. Coming into the year, we all agreed that Seattle's offensive line was the worst in the league. And it's really not. I'm not going to say they're very good, but they haven't been bad. And Doug Baldwin came back last week, and he didn't look hobbled. And they have a bye this week, so you might be able to get some shares of Doug Baldwin or Russell Wilson. I think that team is going to improve. They're still at 3-3, so they're still in the hunt. And the Seahawks always seem to turn it on. And I think coming out of the bye, there's a really good chance that Russell Wilson is probably going to outperform what we think he is, or at least at the beginning of the season, what I thought he was. So those are a couple guys there that you might want to be looking at. But just be careful of I like to call it fool's gold. Okay, so I play in a league, and only one league, that the guys that I'm playing against are pretty terrible. It's kind of this old school fantasy football league. And every single week, guys are going to pick up whoever was the best performer on the waiver wire and play them the next week. And I know that somebody this week is going to pick up Albert Wilson and put him in their lineup and expect to get a couple touchdowns and 200 some yards receiving. Just doesn't happen like that. So, one thing that I like that we do on this show is to just try to calm people down. Remember when Fitzmagic was going crazy and we were saying, hey, temper expectations. Jameis Winston's going to come back. This is kind of an outlier. There's a lot of outliers in fantasy football. So, but looking at the overall picture, I think will help fantasy players be more consistent in the points that their teams are going to put up every week.
Breaking it all down for everyone out there, it is Tyler Baker from the Fantasy Football Paydirt Podcast. My friend, as always, it's so great to have you on the show each and every week. I personally like having you on and hearing your thoughts on the radio. I don't know, you like that private stuff better on the Fantasy Football Facebook group and all that social media stuff. That's your call, my friend, not mine. So great to have you here. So great to have you part of the Fantasy Football Paydirt Podcast and also right here on the PCC Multiverse.
If you're tired of sifting through flea markets for rare and unique games, we can help. Retro City Games in Henderson, Nevada, only 5 minutes from the Las Vegas Strip, has all your favorite gaming staples, classics, and a wide selection of rare games with new stuff always appearing on our shelves. Come in and chat with Nicole or Doug about your love of games and watch as they help you complete your collection or find your childhood favorite. And don't forget, Retro City Games loves trade-ins. So if you have any Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Sega, Xbox, PlayStation, or even PC games, come in and visit Retro City Games today. Welcome to the new metropolis of gaming, Retro City Games.
And we're back to close out the show. This is the PCC Multiverse. This is Gerald coming right back at you with Josh Peterson. If you can at all, please nominate our show, the Pop Culture Cosmos Show, or the PCC Multiverse, or even both, Pop Culture Cosmos / PCC Multiverse, today at the Discover Pods Awards. We have the links available on our social media pages. They're now pinned to the top of our Pop Culture Cosmos, Game Source, and Humanica Media. You just go in, if you vote for us for the Best Society and Culture Podcast, or Best Entertainment, or the Best Overall Podcast of 2018. We truly appreciate you taking the time to doing so. It is a big deal for us. Last year, we were nominated for it, and we thought it was just an awesome thing, and we'd hopefully get a chance to do it again. Again, it's the Discover Pods nominations. Please, if you want to get a chance to vote for our show, we would truly appreciate it. My friend, you've got an awesome thing going on with Humanica Media. Come on. We need to hear the info. We need an update. What is going on with everything at Humanica Media?
Good question. Honestly, I was supposed to post a new episode of Topic Apocalypse today, and I completely forgot. So you'll have to forgive me on that one. It'll be up first thing tomorrow. Subject matter is something I don't remember. But for now, you can go to the Humanica Media check out Topicocalypse on iTunes, and you can listen to our latest episodes. Some of them featuring trash talking and psychology of it, and education, and a whole bunch of other cool stuff. So definitely check that out. I appreciate it.
Oh my gosh! And I thought I was bad trying to remember all of our episodes. My gosh,
dog, we are at almost to 80 episodes of Topicocalypse. Like I there was a time when I could recall everything we've talked about, but now I can remember like 3 things.
We're at 90 on this show and 111 on the others.
So that's a lot of podcasting we've been doing.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. But you can catch his show, the Topicocalypse Show, which I've been on a few. It's an awesome show to be a part of. Every Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific on the Podcast Radio Network. My friend, 2 last things before we head on out. We're going to be talking about Star Citizen and Akira. Just want to give a big thank you also as well to Mike Faber of the ESO Network and Kevin Eldridge of the Flopcast. You got to check out their awesome shows that they have each and every week on the ESO Network or any of the other podcast outlets. And our good friend Tyler Baker, got to thank him for stopping by from the Fantasy Football Paydirt Podcast, and check out his show each and every week on the Pop Culture Cosmos as well. Tell you what, I know you didn't really have the great lowdown, and I always don't have all the latest and greatest information on it either, so I had to do some research. But it is something that every now and then just pokes a hole into the news stream and just gives you updates on what's going on with this very ambitious game, so to speak, because it's a game that combines elements of space travel, space fighting with other spaceships and things of that nature, and then also trying to go ahead and almost like a Star Wars deal where you can battle on the ground and also from a first-person standpoint, fighting off battalions and things of that nature. If you want to get a chance, we have been showing on the Game Source Facebook page, we've been showing off the latest trailers from Star Citizen because they recently had a convention, which is kind of unusual for a game that's not even technically out yet, which is only in certain forms of alphas and things of that nature at this point in time. I think we're up to Alpha 3.3 when it went out to some of the test servers. Your thoughts on this game, my friend? Because they're not a private entity working on this game based off the revenue from another game or whatnot. This is done all by crowdfunding, and they're now up to 195 million, getting close to 200 million sometime in the next couple months here. Your thoughts on Star Citizen? It's a very ambitious game. It's got an all-star cast, including Mark Hamill, Gillian Anderson, Gary Oldman, Mark Strong, Liam Cunningham, John Rhys-Davies, Ben Mendelsohn, Henry Cavill, and even more. Is this game going to be able to live up to its expectations? Is this game too ambitious? This game is going to be wildly successful and a big-time awesome game, or it's going to be a massive failure like nothing we've ever seen before.
I think we're speaking in hypotheticals that are assuming that this game is ever going to be released. The cinematic is beautiful, and we talked a bit before the show, and you're telling me how it's not just a flight sim, it also has a first-person shooter element to it, and that's cool. I could get on board with that if it's just a space flight game. I don't do those. I'm not good at them. I'm not coordinated enough. So I was really stoked on the trailer until that was the only bit of gameplay that I saw. As for the actors, like, this is kind of huge, and a game that has that much star power is being crowdfunded is even more amazing to me. So, it's all we were talking about how much money they raised, and they raised quite a bit. So, I would hope that they would make this game, but who knows if we're ever going to see it? And then you have to worry about it still. A game this big, if it gets as much momentum as people think it's going to get, you still have the whole thing with, is a developer going to pick it up and what's going to happen with that? Like, creating a game is not just going from the crowdfunding cycle to release. Like, there's a lot that goes on in between those things, especially a game of this caliber, because who's to say they haven't recorded all the voice acting already? They need to keep paying Mark Hamill and Mark Strong and those people, and I am definitely impressed by what I saw. But again, like, video games, man, you don't know. Something like this, maybe it'll be released years from now, maybe it'll be released soon, maybe it might never be released. There's nothing is ever set in stone with video games until it is.
Well, the other reason why it just never stays on the radar for us is because they don't promote it or don't update it through traditional methods. I mean, we don't see it at E3. We don't see it at Tokyo Game Show. We don't see it at the Paris Games Week. We don't see it at PlayStation, at PSX. We don't see it at CES or any of those, really. We only see updates from the actual company themselves, the site itself, and stuff like what went on this past weekend with CitizenCon is what they call it, which was a conference devoted to Star Citizen. So it's kind of weird. Like I said, and the game is not even out yet, and they're already having conventions, which is it just tells you about the legions of fans that are already on board. But that's just hardcore fans that are willing to already contribute financially to it. Just imagine if it actually this type of ambitious game actually gets released upon to the wild. What kind of really just individuals that can go out there, because it really hasn't been put out and shown off really to any extent to a casual marketplace. So the casual gamer that's out there, or the individual that's out there that just goes ahead and plays games every 2, 3, or 4, times a year, or maybe they just play Fortnite or whatnot. They haven't really been introduced to Star Citizen because, and I'll bet you, if I asked 10 casual gamers, maybe 2, maybe 3 might know what Star Citizen is, which really tells you there's so much love for it now. Just think of how big it could be of a success if it's just a decent game that comes out.
Yeah, it's a good point, because every game has its hardcore fan base. A game like this, it surprises me that they're not doing more to market it to a bigger audience just because of the star power it has. Like, if it didn't have any of these actors in it, that'd be a whole different story. Like, I could totally see it going under the radar. But if they finish it and it ends up being good, find a stage, find something. Don't just put out internet videos, because this could be huge. But again, like you said, it's just how are they going to market it to mass audiences and not just to the hardcore fan base?
This hybrid of action game where it looks like it's going to be a big-time narrative-driven game combined with a lot of action out there in space, but also on the ground in a first-person mode. It has me really excited that this could be something that can compete with the Call of Duties, with the Battlefields, with so many others of these same type of ilks that we are so used to seeing one after another, after another, after another, year after year after year. Star Citizen can come in there and really show them what it's all about. And I hope so, because so many people have invested so much money into this game. I'm hoping that for once in the video game marketplace, it can truly pay off well, and that we can all become a true Star Citizen. What are your thoughts on Star Citizen? Are you excited for it? Do you even know about it? Share us your thoughts, popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Also as well, Pop Culture Cosmos, Humanica Media, and Game Source on Facebook and Twitter as well. And over the next couple of weeks, we're going to go ahead and start putting some things out there on Star Citizen every now and then on our Pop Culture Cosmos and Game Source Facebook pages, so we can educate you a little more and get you up to speed on what's going on with Star Citizen. Josh, before we head on out, it's been a great episode, but got to talk to you about Akira. Its 35th anniversary here. Such an outstanding film, and basically the reason why, in my opinion, you got to think of anime as just a true form of art and a genre in and of itself that bleeds so much passion, so much great storytelling and narrative-driven concepts. Your thoughts on Akira as it hits 35, and are you going to get that box set that retails now right around $130? How excited are you now that Akira is 35 years old?
I'm excited that it's left the legacy that it has. I wish that more people would watch it, though. When I recommend it to people, they either don't watch it or it takes them months and months to watch it and they still don't understand it. But someone I showed it to recently actually really liked it. They're like, I didn't know anime was this good. So that's cool. As for Akira, I'm pretty sure I watched Dragon Ball Z first. That was the first anime I saw, but Akira was the first gritty anime that I ever watched, and it was kind of the gateway drug for me, if you will, that made me want to dive into a lot of the other series that are out there. I love the movie. Honestly, like it's probably in my top 10 favorite movies. As a kid, I got the opportunity to see it, and I own the collector edition Blu-ray that came out, I want to say 5 years ago, but Akira is amazing. The writing's great, the animation's great, and it's very emotional too. And that's something you don't get a lot in modern anime. But I ask you this, what are your thoughts on Akira?
To me, it defines what anime is all about. A true work of art in and of itself. If there's any bit of anime that anybody asks me, okay, if I'm not familiar with anime, where should I go to first? I say go to Akira. But the only thing is, I've also told you this, once you go to Akira, it's hard to appreciate to the fullest extent anything else like that, because you've seen the greatest that I think anime has to offer. It's so hard to put anything else near or at its level, in my opinion, because even with stuff like what you talk about with Dragon Ball Z, Cowboy Bebop, and so much others, it's hard to even get close, in my opinion, to the wonders that Akira represents, because it is just so well done. It's just so good, and it just is so appealing, and it has aged so well over the course of 35 years that I think there's nothing else that compares to it within the anime genre. One last thing to ask you, my friend, when it comes to Akira, there is still in possible production at some point in time a reimagining of Akira. Your thoughts on doing that, your thoughts on if that should happen, take place. I'm not a big fan of it, and I just think it would send a bad sign for them to complete it, to do it, because I don't think it could be anywhere near as successful as the anime. And I also think it could also soil the name of the actual movie itself and lead others away from actually ever watching or experiencing the great Akira movie.
See, I want it to happen, and I don't want it to happen. I more don't want it to happen. I want it to happen because if it gets put in the hands of a good filmmaker and it's not all CG, like like a Speed Racer or whatever, which is actually not that bad on the fourth or fifth watch. But part of me is also thinking that it's going to sound bad, but audiences just aren't smart enough these days to understand Akira. I barely understood it when I saw it at age 12. So I think it's one of those storylines that is so complex, and it's a formula they've been trying so hard to repeat in modern animes, just throwing these like weird storylines out there and hoping that everyone's like, oh, I don't get it, but it sounds really smart. So we're just going to say that this is good. People have been trying to copy Akira for years, and you see it in all kinds of modern anime. I don't think that it would translate well into a live action thing. What's that old acronym that they used to say in filmmaking? KISS, keep it simple, stupid.
That's correct.
I would love to see it happen, but my fear would be that people wouldn't understand it. And like you said, it would maybe turn people off of the whole thing in general.
I agree with you. I think it's playing with fire, but I also think they're trying to recapture the magic. And it just, when film companies try to go ahead and reimagine animated features into a live action format, it doesn't always work. Yes, it works with some of the Disney properties that they're going through now, and they liked what happened with the Jungle Book and whatnot so much that they're now going ahead and doing their process with Dumbo, Aladdin, and the list goes on and on. I'm just saying you're playing with fire, and at some point in time, you're going to get burnt. And it could be with something like Akira, because that movie is just so good, so memorable, so outstanding that I don't think it should be tarnished in such a fashion. But we'll wait and see. Hopefully, we'll be proven wrong and actually have something good on the screen to represent Akira well, because Akira deserves it. And after 35 years, just goes to show you the lasting power of Akira and how brilliant it truly is for the anime genre. What are your thoughts on Akira? Do you love it as much as we do? Do you really appreciate it now that it's in its 35th year? Or have you even seen it yet and would like to or not like to? Let us know. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Also as well, Pop Culture Cosmos, Humanica Media, and Game Source on Facebook and Twitter as well. My friend, it's been another great episode. Any last thoughts on the way out?
Yeah, on next week, if we have some time, I do want to talk about The Haunting of Hill House, because I got to the end of that yesterday, and I love it, man. Absolutely. The writing was great. The cinematography was great. If you have a chance and you want to hear us, you want to check out the show before we talk about it, do it. But yeah, dude, I do definitely want to say some words about it.
Then we'll say it on the Monday show, man. Hopefully you'll be able to elaborate why it's such a can't-miss project and another great show from Netflix. So for Josh Peterson, this is Gerald Glassford. It's another beautiful day in paradise right here in the PCC Multiverse. We thank you for listening. And here's hoping you have yourself a great day.
You're listening to a Weeby Geeks Network podcast.
This has been a broadcast of the ESO Network. Be part of the crew and help support our shows by donating to our ESO Patreon or by shopping through Amazon.com or the TeePublic store, which can all be found at www.esonetwork.com. The ESO Network, your station for all things geek.
Tangent Bound Network. Let your voice be heard. TangentBoundNetwork.com.
Thanks so much for downloading the Pop Culture Cosmos, and stay tuned as more great podcasts are on the way. Thanks again for listening to us here at the Pop Culture Cosmos.